In this step, we're going to do a little bit more work with static meshes. We're going to bring in a rock and we're going to get that into our scene. So let's just get stuck in. So the first thing I need to do is get the rock. And what I'm going to do is go into my models and textures folder, and we're looking in the rocks one. You can see we've got the FBX file, which is your geometry, and there are 3 types of textures. So we're going to do the geometry first because I'm already looking at that folder. So let's bring in the rock. So there we go. I'm just going to drop that in there. And here are my FBX import options. Again, I'm going to let this auto-generate collision. And what we're going to do is leave everything else at defaults. So let's click on import. And this is our rock. So we'll double click on this and have a quick look at it. You'll be able to see that it's very simple. I just sculpted this out as quickly as I possibly could in Maya. Not a lot of detail, but it is at least nice and low poly. And you can see I've been lazy. I've not named my material. So it was just called Lambert 2 when I had it in Maya. But we're going to create the rock material and assign that now. So we'll leave that open just over there. And now we need to import the texture. So let's go back to our textures folder. And we're going to import these 3 textures. Now we're only going to be using for now the diffuse and the normal. The displacement is a different thing altogether, which we will probably come back to towards the end of finishing touches. It depends how the exercise is working as a whole as to whether or not we do that. But we only need the diffuse and normal for now, but we'll import all 3 just so we're ready. So let's drag these in. There we go. And they're all imported. 1, 2, 3. So let's just minimize that. Save all. Yep. And we need this rock material to exist now, so let's do that. So let's go to our materials folder. Right click, new material. And this is going to be m_rock. And then let's open that up, and we're going to need 2 texture samples and a constant for the roughness. So I'm holding T, left click. To get a constant expression, you can hold 1 and left click. And this is all the ones we need. So let's just select the rock texture. So it's going to be that one there. And then this is going to be the rock normal. Rock_n. And we're going to set our roughness to about 0.7. And let's plug these into the right places. 1, 2, and 3 normal. And then this is what our rock material is going to look like. Ooh, nice. Okay, let's save that bad boy. So exciting. There we go. Right, now we can close that. We're going to come back into this rock in the static mesh editor. In the static mesh editor. Whew, easy for me to say. Okay, so let's do the rock material. There are multiple rocks because there are some from the starter content. I think mine is going to be the top one. It is. There you go. So that looks okay, but I'm not actually massively enamored with the way that I have placed the texture. I could do better. So what we're going to do is add a bit of tiling to that. Let's go back into the material for the rock. And we're going to create a texture coordinate node. We're going to plug this into the UVs for both of these. And we're just going to tile this a couple of times. So we'll put 2, oh, not 22, 2 in both of these boxes. And we'll save that. And what that will do, it's a tileable texture I'm using. It'll just make everything look a bit more high definition. We don't want it to look stretched. There we go. So even on this preview there, it already looks better. If we go into the rock, that's much nicer. You might even decide that you want to tile that 3 times or even 4, whatever you think looks good. I'm going to leave it at 2 for now because that will do it. So then we will save that. Lovely. And we can now set about putting some of these rocks in our level. So what I'm going to do is just add just a couple. I'm going to put them kind of to the side of the cabin here. So let's go to our geometry folder. Let's get our rock. And you can see that kind of by default, it wants to sit on top of the ground. But I don't think that looks particularly good or natural. I think rocks look a bit better if they're sort of half buried. So what I'm going to do is drag that down like that. So you'll be surprised at how much clipping there is through geometry in games. It can hide a lot. And one really cool way to create, so we've only got one rock, which means we can't add that much variety, but we can create other rocks out of this one rock. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to do that by holding Alt on my keyboard. There we go. And if I left click on a direction, it'll just like allow me to drag a copy out of it. What about that? I'm like a wizard. Okay. So then I'm going to scale it down a little bit and probably just bring it out of the ground. I'll rotate it around some. Put it on a funny angle, I think. Like that. And then I'm just going to have this sort of become part of this rock, so it'll just kind of stick out of it. Like that. And you can see that now, it's not ace, but it adds a little bit of extra detail, a little bit of variety to that rock. In this final step where we're going to cover foliage, we're going to use the foliage tool to get some more rocks, some of these boulders around the scene. So let's get stuck straight into that. So I've got my foliage tool on. I need to make sure that I have no tick in the grass and no tick in the tree. And then I'm going to add my rock to the foliage tool. And then I'm going to select this to make sure that I can work with it. So what I've turned on is static meshes because I do want to be able to paint on top of, and in fact I'm going to turn on foliage because I want to be able to paint on top of other boulders if I want to kind of layer these up. Okay, and then what we need to do is just work on some of these settings. So the density is going to be set to 10 on this one. The radius can stay at 0 because I want these to intersect. The scale we're going to set from 0.8 up to 2 to get some nice variation in the sizes. Okay, the Z offset this time around we're going to have going from -200 to -50. So I want these to intersect with the ground like I did with the rocks earlier. This time I do want to align to normal. That's quite important to me because I want it to kind of follow the slope of the terrain. I want a random yaw. I'm going to set a random pitch angle. So I want lots of random going on this. So I'll have a random pitch angle of up to 90. The random slope angle will also up to 90. That's all good. And then we're also going to make sure that we have collision turned on. We're going to put block all in there. Okay, so before I do anything else, I'm just going to go to save all because everything is still crashing on me. Okay, and then just for a bit of a test, we're going to put some rocks kind of behind the cabin somewhere, so about here. So I'm quite happy with my brush size as it is. So I'm just going to click once. Yeah, that's kind of nice, I think. So I've got a bit of variation going on, and I could, if I wanted to, click there again, or click around there, and it would start to layer them up. I don't really want that, so I'll undo that. But now, as I kind of go around, I can add. So I want to just add some rocks kind of here, maybe there. So I'm just going to place them certain places around the scene. I've got to be careful not to touch the trees though, because I've got the ability to paint on foliage turned on, so I could feasibly paint on top of the trees, which I don't want to do.